Awake living into uncharted territory together, accelerating your wellness path, plus your interconnectivity at the same time.
It's not your grandma's or your Veda, but it kind of is.
It's the Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Kate Tillman.
Hello, it's Kate with the Yoga Healer Real Life Show. Today's show, we have Rachel Brathen on Daring to Be Real about yoga and motherhood. I had so much fun talking to Rachel. I'd never met her before. She's a famous yoga teacher who strives to keep it real. She was raised in Sweden. She now lives in Aruba, where she walks her talk and brings us back to our mat. She's a mom of a baby girl. In this show, it's hilarious. She raps about becoming popular with teens, somewhat inadvertently, and how she connects with her students. So stay tuned and just get a hit of yogis in the real world. Do you want to have a conversation about your wellness career? Sometimes it's hard to find someone who actually knows something about advancing a wellness career in your friend group or in your peer group. And that's why at yogahealer.com and yogahealthcoaching.com, we take it seriously. Like, we really want to see wellness leaders and yoga teachers and body workers and holistic practitioners, as well as doctors and nurses who have a wellness mindset. We want to see you thrive. So you can go to yogahealthcoaching.com/have-a-conversation and sign up, and you can talk to my very own Grace Edison. Like, I'm claiming you, Grace. You are mine. You can talk to Grace about your wellness career, and she can point you to resources that we have within our site. She can give you some advice. And if you're a good fit for one of our programs, she can let you know which one we can recommend so that you get the results that you're looking for. So if you really just want to sit down and have a conversation with someone who gets it about your wellness career, go to yogahealthcoaching.com/have-a-conversation. Grace is an awesome person to talk to. You're going to love it. Take that appointment very seriously so you get the most out of it. Have a conversation. All right, I have the pleasure of being here with Rachel Brathen, and you're quite like a public yoga teacher out in the real world. And I'd love to hear a little bit of your transformation just in terms of becoming more of a social figure in the yoga world.
Yeah, I don't really know how that happened, to be honest. It wasn't something that I set out to do or create. It just kind of happened on its own. You know, social media has a way of just taking things and running with it. So yeah, I've been going with the flow.
Well, and I'm curious too, because I mean, for like Americans we're sort of flashy people in the world. You know what I mean? Especially like American yoga teachers can often be much more out there and much more star-oriented or trying to attract attention. But you were raised in Sweden, right?
Yes, very, very different here.
And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that too, about like what stuff was cultural and, you know, kind of got in the way of you connecting with a larger audience, and what stuff wasn't cultural and actually was more of a gateway, or maybe made you more accessible. Or tell me about that part of the journey.
It's interesting because social media wise, a large part of my demographic is in the US. So a big piece of the community is there, but I'm not American. I don't live in the States. You know, I'm Swedish living in Aruba. So I don't know actually why that is. But Sweden, people are really a little more held back, cautious, and, you know, not as much out there and wild and crazy in a way that I feel like Americans can. There's less inhibition in the US, I would say, compared to Sweden. So whenever for instance, right now, when I travel to the US, usually people stop me a lot in the street, or they want to hug or say hi if they recognize me from somewhere. In Sweden, that almost never happens. They wouldn't.
Because they wouldn't invade your privacy? Like they wouldn't?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, they're very, very cautious, and I'm so sorry, but I recognize you from somewhere. In the US, it's more like, we'll go through airports and get random hugs from people we've never met, and people are just super out there, which is super fun. I like that. But yoga has a way of, I think in Sweden, getting people out of their shells a little bit more and more. So every time I come back to Sweden to teach, people are a little bit more open. But there's definitely a big cultural difference there.
And is there any judgment from people? Like, have you gotten any judgment from being more?
Always.
Yeah. So what's that been like? Especially coming from Sweden, where there is more of a, I don't say inhibited, but a little bit more protected self-image.
It is yoga, right? It kind of goes against the whole idea of social media and the whole idea of I don't know, the idea of fame or celebrity totally goes against, I feel, what yoga is. So there's a big contrast there. And I've been doing my best to keep it really authentic and as a way to create community more than anything else. But there's always people out there that say that, yoga girl, what kind of bullshit is that? So it is what it is, can't please everyone either.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And it's kind of a funny day and age when there's so much available and so many different ways of going about it. And one of the things that I've seen in the last 20 years in the yoga industry is just the great thing about more people having access and more people doing yoga, right? I mean, and there's a lot of judgment from the yoga community, especially the more sophisticated part of the yoga community, with how, like breaches of integrity or, losses of core values and teaching and whatnot. But at the end of the day, when I look around, it's like, there's just more people doing yoga. Like my kid goes to school and they do some yoga and mindfulness practices and breath work and it's normal at her school. And if yoga hadn't become more popular and maybe in some ways more watered down, it wouldn't be trickling down into, a typical suburban, grade school.
Right. But I mean, I think there is a way to translate the core values of the practice into something that really fits, that demographic too. So the type of yoga that I teach is really, really accessible. And I get a ton of teenagers that come to class, and I'll teach those really big classes that seem that they could be a little bit out of touch, but they're some of the most intimate classes that I teach, because there's something really powerful, a big group of people coming together with the same intention. There's nothing odd about it. It's a really beautiful thing, actually.
Yeah.
So people criticize, I feel, maybe haven't had that experience. They kind of form their own ideas and judgments from afar, which is of course easy to do. But no, in class, I've never had a bad experience.
I love that. Well, the whole experience of like humans just want to feel great. Like humans just want to thrive. It doesn't matter what age. And so if we can bring people together on the mats or on the cushions or in a circle where we can presence that desire and then start to do things that open.
Doesn't matter how you got there. Right.
So tell me a little bit more about for people that are working with teens or maybe struggling with that too, with connecting. What are some of the ways that you found it open the doors
for teenagers?
Yeah, for teaching with teens. Yeah.
Honestly, what I've found is, and this is something that where social media is really helpful, is it has to be a little bit cool. I find I get a lot of moms that bring their kids to my classes, or no, the other way around, kids that bring their moms to my classes. Maybe they're 16, 17 or even younger. And they say, oh, come take a yoga class with this person that I follow on Instagram. And it has to be a little hip for the teens to actually want to be there and to be present and to actually pay attention, compared to, being dragged by the hair by their mom saying, you have to practice yoga. Yoga will help you. It has to come from their own intention of wanting to be on the mat. You can't force it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why do they want to be on the mat?
I mean, in the classes that I teach, the bigger ones, it is a little bit of it becomes almost like an event. It's like a whole day thing. And of course, the piece of celebrity is a huge, huge, huge draw, which always goes away the moment they step on the mats. It's the outer world bringing them in, but then the moment the practice has begun, it's all of that is just fades away. I think that's why the idea of celebrity in the yoga world, it doesn't really add up, because the moment you're on your mat, no matter who brought you there, if it's inspiration or someone, that you adore from afar, it's always about you and your practice and your body and your breath at the end of the day. So it's always going to be of benefit, I think, which is different from other type of celebrity, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, because it's just like the gateway drug. It's like, it doesn't really matter what gets you in, as long as you get in.
As long as you get in, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And I find that so much just in, for most yoga students to remember back to like what brought them in, and how, the reason what brought us in and what brings us back are so far apart, and what continues to bring us back continues to change with our evolving needs, and our evolving desires as we become more whole and we become more integrated. And right. So like people often in the beginning, they're not like, oh yeah, I came for the community connection and this heart level co-creative experience. It's like I had back pain.
Back pain, right? Or now with the teenagers, we hear a lot because of Instagram. Like I found yoga through Instagram. It's a really strange concept, but it actually works. As long as it gets you to the mat.
So what do you think? Is this going to be like a flash in the pan thing where yoga was big in the between 2010 and 2020, and then between 2020 and 2030, it's just like the least cool thing to do? Like, or I mean, we have this lasting heritage here. I mean, it's funny because I come equally from the Ayurveda world and the yoga world, and a part of what I've done is made Ayurveda a little bit more hip. And, there's part of this, like Ayurveda is now getting way more hip. Just in the last 2 years, really. It's been really recent that more yoga teachers. Yeah, like they've actually heard the word that there's better supplement companies doing better marketing to actually get some of these ancient formulas out and whatnot. And I'm kind of like, is this a flash in the pan? I mean, it's thousands and thousands of years old. Is this just going to
be merging the really old with the really new? It has to evolve in a certain way. I mean, it has to.
And that's what my sense too is. Like, it's not going to be a flash in the pan. It's actually going to give rise to some whole other level of depth and connection. But there's just like this ripening where it's not going to be a flash in the pan thing because it's never been. There's just more access. Right.
There's more access, yeah. And I mean the online world, it's kind of made it accessible anywhere you are. If you're looking for a teacher, if you don't have a home practice, which I feel is a lot of people don't these days. I think online yoga can be a really great complement to a regular practice. But for many people, they start now with the online stuff. Like, I can find a teacher online, roll out my mat at home, do yoga from anywhere. And then the community aspect is a little bit lost, So I think it's important to keep bringing that in. Like I try to always highlight that. Like you're not here, like Instagram, online yoga, all that stuff. It can be a really nice addition to the depth of having a true community and a true teacher that you can touch and talk to and, ask questions and get support when you need it, because it can't just stay. And I think it can't just stay in the online space. It has to be the gateway, like you say.
Yeah. Well, and to me, it's a yes and. I mean, almost all my stuff's online, but we always say it's not just, of course, it's community. We have meetups and a lot of connection, like lots of connection points, lots of teleconferencing between retreats, et cetera. And this whole thing of getting that, like just getting that the reason it can't be a one-way download relationship where it can't be a consumer relationship, right? Like that it can start that way. It's so interesting to me because I live part-time in Mexico and the upload internet speed is really slow because it's such a consumer economy. The people are just sucking down stuff. They're not actually uploading, which is a creative act, right? So we have the receiving act and then we have the creating act. And in a lot of, it's interesting to me that like in this global economy, there's actually to some degree with all the sort of the focus on the download, the focus on the streaming instead of the focus on the participation and the co-creative, collaborative, forward movement, that like technology hasn't really caught up with what it needs to be able to do globally for more people to get into this yes and relationship. And so when I look at that and I look at, like you're saying, like, yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, you can get inspiration and you can take my yoga classes online, you can get this hit. But until we have a relationship, right? Until I actually can give you feedback and you can give me feedback and we can make this thing better together, it's like we're still in that like very, very beginning phase of the growth curve.
Right. Just scratching at the surface. It is.
So what's your sense in terms of, for a lot of the yoga teachers that are teaching online and a lot of the students that are, absorbing from online, like how do they take that next step together?
I mean, it has to be seen as kind of I think that's one of the online studios. There are so many now. I have one myself. It's kind of the how you market is like yoga anywhere, anytime, roll out your mat wherever you are. But like you can do that without a computer. Like you don't really need Wi-Fi to roll out your mat and step on your mat. So I think continuously pushing that this is an addition to you finding time and space by yourself, like with you. We can't lose that piece because then I really think the core values of the practice are really become really lost. And I meet people all the time that and they don't even know of the idea of a home practice. Like, where do I begin and how do I guide myself? And, I think finding that space of you on your mat alone is the most important thing. And then it's fun to get inspiration and to try different teachers and to go online and do all this stuff. But no, we have to keep pushing that. Otherwise, yeah, then what? Like, are we not going to do yoga if you don't have Wi-Fi connection? And can't practice. Like, I mean, it becomes a legitimate thing. Oh, I couldn't practice today. I didn't have internet. No, that's just nuts.
Oh my God, I want to pull that out and make it a meme. What's wrong with this phrase? Oh my gosh. I mean, what a concept. What a concept. Right. That's never registered for me. But that's the, the other big part of what I hear complaints about is in the Instagram yoga age is that just all the sort of the level 3 poses of people doing like really extreme stuff. And then, and the more I've talked to some of these people that, like the photo shoot yogis, is they're like, their home practice is like yoga nidra, restorative.
Yeah.
it's like putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. And so there's this massive discrepancy between what we see and then what the deeper, more advanced practice actually is by the same practitioners who are doing the flashy poses.
Right. I mean, there's a huge disconnect there. Really, really, really big one. I don't know. I'm kind of alone on my end of the Instagram yogi community. I don't have a lot of the Insta celebrity yogi people. I'm not close with almost any of them. And I think a big piece of that is I was always really against the idea of, the yoga challenge where it's like, here's a pose, do this today, stand on your head tomorrow, do like advanced back bend on the third day, like et cetera, et cetera. It's just not what my practice looks like. It's not really what anybody's practice looks like. And I like the idea of telling someone to drop into a pose for the purpose of posting something online. To me is just really, really absurd. But at the end of the day, if you share really advanced stuff, then you get your likes and your comments and your engagement, and social media wise, like that's what sells. But it's not really what's real. I try really, really hard to share the totally, as is. Like right now, it's like breastfeeding with my baby. Haven't done laundry in 2 weeks. Everything is just like it's a mess, and that's what my practice is. If I get a chance to even step on the mat, which is really, really, really rare. And the response I get is more like, "What a relief!" Like, "Wow, okay, so it's okay. I can still say because a lot of people say I feel like I didn't do yoga if I didn't put my body in an advanced pose, or if I didn't sweat for 90 minutes on my mat, because that's what yoga has to be to count as yoga. Where for me, it could be 5 minutes of breathing while I nurse my baby. Like that's my practice a lot of the days.
Yeah. I remember those days. Okay, we'll be back in a minute with Rachel Brathen. If you haven't checked out 108, you can spell it all out.com. That's an online platform that Rachel built for yoga and meditation and healing. It is one of the most successful crowd-funded yoga projects of all time. I think it's really cool. What I love about Rachel, and you're probably hearing in this, is that there's a lot about just the values-based leading of community and how practically it is based on her lifestyle and her being a mom. And we get more into that in the second half about being more of the mom and humility on the path of self-invention in the public eye. Do you want to make smarter choices faster every day? Then do the Values Workshop. You can improve your family relationships as a parent, as a sibling, as a grown child. You can step into your next level of impact as an influencer or a leader. Once you've done your values, you can actually lead and train to your values. But if you haven't done your values, you can't. And that is why I am offering you the free Values Workshop. I don't know why I'm offering it for free. Maybe because I'm just really want to see us evolve as a society, as a global partnership. So if you want to take advantage of this, go to yogahealer.com/values-workshop, VALUES-workshop, WORKSHOP. I have no idea how long I'm going to allow this to go for free. I also have some good coaching on the other side of the Values Workshop. So once you've figured out the values, you can actually start to lead and train even your family members to your family values. So you can do this for yourself. You can do this for your company. You can do this for your family. Go to yogahealer.com/values-workshop. And again, I have no idea how long I'm going to let you do this for free, but for now it is. So do it and share it with your friends, with your family, so that everyone can just awaken to the power of their own values and making better choices in line with their own values. Namaste. Yeah, and it's like in that sort of transparency and authenticity, right? Like that's a break, that's what actually bridges people into connecting with themselves. Whereas when we
Right.
don't, we actually get more disconnect, we get more projection, we get more envy, right? Or whatever it is. Like these emotions that don't actually help us drop in, they create more dissatisfaction and more disconnect, right? Where we have that like
You can see that behind the intention of, because I mean, there's people out there that kind of share a lot of that, more advanced and body stuff that I still feel really inspired by. I think you can have a person in the same pose, two different people posting the same kind of thing, that resonate completely different to one person versus the other. So it depends on the intention of the pose. Did you capture a moment where you felt something and you feel inspired to share something that, brought you something? Or is it like, wait, I have to like take my Instagram photo of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get more likes today. You can feel the difference in that energy. So the same thing you say, that saying, you become kind of like the people you spend the most time with. Yeah. I like to think of it the same way. The people you follow in social media should be people that lift you up, that inspire you, that make you feel good about who you are. So if you have that, jealousy creeps up or resentment, then unfollow. Like, don't look at that every day if it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm in this sort of I think it's the homesteader movement, really, where I'm falling into this category. And a lot of it's come from Ayurveda and kitchen sadhana and just like really having my shit together when it comes to making amazing food for my family and having all these like live ferments and harvesting, stuff from my ecosystem when I'm out mountain biking, with like teaching my kid about the weeds and whatnot. And I'm like, and I can just see how for some people it creates this like she can do it all Wonder Woman thing where she can have this like big online business and be super successful, and she still has time to like make her own kombucha and her own sauerkraut and blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? And it's like this whole thing of like, how do I bring that down to this is like, I can't not do this because it's so easy and it's so it was funny the other day, I'm like taking pictures of me and my 9-year-old making our own cat food, because we make our own cat food because I don't want to, the stuff, basically animal food is really not good for the animals, right? And so it's pretty easy to make your own cat food, but I'm like, this is like our own version of 4-H, which in the United States is like the like the animal husbandry part of the education curriculum. And I'm like, this is our home version of 4-H, is that she gets to learn like what her cat needs to eat, and she gets to make her own cat food, and I facilitate the process, and we batch task it like we do all of our homesteader type activities or kitchen sadhana activities or whatnot. But part of me just really gets it. Like, I've got to be so careful with the projected image of what I'm doing. So it's not like you should make your own cat food too. And if you don't, you're not a good, you're not good enough owner. Right? Yeah. You're not enough. Right. And it's like this funny balance where it's like, for me, it's such a streamlined part of my activities, and it's a great thing to do with my kid and spend time together. And I work from home, so it's relatively easy for me to batch task a lot of these. Like kombucha's easy because I'm home all the time, and if I have 5 minutes, I'll go bottle it. But it's so much harder for somebody who's like working away from home and commuting and raising the kids, and then they come in at night and now they're like, oh my God, I now have to make my own cat food.
That's a lot of pressure. Jesus. No, but I think the best way to balance that, I mean, what I have found for myself, at least, because I have that too. I have a good life. I travel a lot, and, it looks really probably easy, in the online space, is to give a little bit more of the full picture, which for me means sharing the really shitty stuff as it comes up. Because even if I have this, if it's the dreamy life of like mountain biking and making kombucha, making my own cat food, I have no problems. Everything is easy. I'm the super mom or super person. It's like we all have shit days. We all have days when nothing works. We all have, life happens when things just turn to absolute crap. And I find sharing those moments in the moment when it's painful as is, it's just the realest way. And it makes other people feel like, oh, wow, okay, it's okay for me to have this crap day. Because look at this person who I was inspired by also, isn't this superhuman whatever that I see on my screen, but there's this whole other component to it. And people rarely do that. We rarely, because it's not, you can't share all that, if it's only boring stuff, or like the toast you ate today and then you had a bad phone call, or, it has to be the balance between what's inspiring and fun, but also what's real and, true.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm writing in my second book right now called Awake Living. And there's a lot of like, just like day-to-day reality. And I just went through a period of just a lot of, turmoil and team. I have a decent sized team, and just like some of the issues that came up, and I was like, I've got to write about this part too. And as I was doing that and really getting into it, I mean, it's therapeutic, right? For those of us who tend to do more of like the glam side of things, like it's really therapeutic to disclose all, or disclose not maybe all, but like enough to help someone be able to connect and relate. What's interesting too is like in doing that, then there's more joy. It's like with the more Maya there is, the more joy there is in the revelation, right? That's the teaching of yoga. Like it's fun to disconnect because then you get to rediscover the amazingness of connection. Whereas if you're always in the field of connectivity, you kind of forget that you're even there because, you don't have the drama of like totally forgetting who you are and forgetting that you're actually both unity and separation and all that.
Most people don't have that problem, I'm too connected. Oh my God. I'm too enlightened right now. It's a pain. I need to come back to earth. Give me some drama.
So, but for those okay. But for those who are kind of like, it's like you think you're there, right? You mean it's like when all the pieces really are fitting together and lining up and you're like, wow, it's working. Like my relationships are at a new level. My body, mind, spirit connections at a new level. Like things are going great. Then something does happen, right? Always to me. It's like there's always, it's part of, what is it? Kala. It's part of the relationship with time. It's like if you give enough time, something else is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, like for you, like what's that been lately where you've had a shutdown in something that or a revelation and a realization that like, oh, like there's that sort of that churn of that tapas before the next configuration.
I mean, I feel with a baby, that's like a constant, it's a constant thing. Whenever we're in a really good phase, I had that in the beginning. She was so easy. I mean, the first month or 2 months, it was almost too much. I almost felt like, okay, I have to almost invent some challenges here because I'm making other people feel bad because I have this baby who sleeps and eats and isn't gassy and never cries. Like she didn't cry for the first 4 or 5 weeks. But then I thought, you know what? I'm allowed to revel in this mega happiness too. I'm not going to fake that to try to, not make other people feel bad. No, it's okay to like step into this happiness because yes, eventually something is going to come our way. And then boom, she got really colicky. And it was just this total, I felt like a massive failure and she was crying all the time and I was crying all the time. And it's just this, there's always something that brings you back to earth. So not reveling in the happiness, I think, is also cheating yourself out of that moment, because eventually something else is going to come up and happen. But with her, like now we're back in happy phase. Every time I share, oh, it's hard now. Then the next day is great. And then I share like, oh, everything is magical. And then the next day sucks. So it's just, she brings out all the, the high highs and the low lows every day, which is really amazing. Actually, it's really, she's really bringing me along on this ride. That's way more emotional than I'm used to, but it's kind of nice to be so immersed in that because it makes me really present with everything all the time.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a lot of time to float away in this in-between space,
Do you find that for me, like that core emotion with newborns and with intimacy, like the depth of, and to me it lasts like years, like that it kind of keeps going with parenting, but like especially in those first few years, the intimacy up level of just being so cellularly and etherically connected in ways that like are so beyond our ability to understand. But I feel like the yoga practices open us up to that. And many of us weren't parented with that. Like many of us did not have like yogi meditator mamas that were really connected on or interested on all these different levels. I think many of us are raised in a much more compartmentalized experience. And when we have more of these like yogi meditator mamas, there's much less of that compartmentalization. There's so much more curiosity of like, who are you? What do you need from me today? And like, can I like be a tenth of that for you?
No, it's absolutely, it blows my mind. The connection. I don't know. When I had her, my first thing that I would tell all my friends that have kids is that, well, how come no one told me this is what it is? Like it was just, and they're like, well, how do you explain it? Like, it's not really explainable, I feel. But I mean, I have a blog I want to do, like all the things that she's teaching me. It's so simple to be a 3-month-old, like if you're sad, cry. Like why go and carry all this pain and you can't be vulnerable or intimate? Or just cry, like let it out. If you're angry, then scream, if you're tired, sleep. If you're hungry, eat. Like it's so simple. And she can go from being, miserable and all of a sudden she's happy and it's real happy because the miserable part passed, it went through her versus as adults when we kind of tend to cling and hold on to these energies and these emotions. And then we build up and we become these little, like firecrackers about to explode at anything because we don't let anything out. And I really, I've developed this respect for her, even when she throws like what I feel is, I don't know why she's crying. She won't stop. Clearly there's a reason. And then it's over. And when it's over, it's really beautiful to see that transition into peace and calm, and it's real. I aspire to be more like that.
And just the two things that you said, like one is how the transparency of emotion is energetically efficient, right? How when we start to see, and when we carry stuff or when we see other people carrying stuff that all this like unprocessed, or in Ayurveda they call emotional alma, how inefficient it is for all levels of the physiology. Like all koshas go into like massive load bearing instead of like, free fall or cruise control. Right? Where it's like, wow, when we can just process that, then like, wow, there's just, the koshas are clear. These different levels of self are transparent and clear. The mind can communicate with the energy body, can communicate with the physical body, can, co-create with the intuitive body, can be awake to the bliss. It's like, there's less junk in between, right? And then it's like, oh wait, this is way more efficient, which frees up a ton of energy for like something much better to happen. Like whether that's your next project or the next phase of, what you're doing in the world, or just like to experience more bliss and more joy, that there's just literally like more capacity freed up to up-level the nervous system, right? So that if we look at like a great guru, like their nervous system can handle a lot. And part of the reason it can handle so much energy is because there's efficiency. That's not being like rerouted into this or that, or, remembering this emotional issue because I didn't release my sadness from 25 years ago, or Right. Okay. And
it's so
so then the other thing I heard, and this helped me so much as a new mom, was that like crying is exercise.
Yes.
Right?
I loved hearing that. Like exercising their lungs, like they can't go out for a run or take them out the class.
They can't move. They're blobs. They're like, they can't self-locomote.
It's that helped me so much. Or if all else fails, at least you can be like, okay, she's exercising right now. She's screaming off the top of her lungs, like, but all is well. It's fine. It's fine. She's, somehow she's meant to do this. But but it's also helping. I don't know. I think it's harder for my husband because when she cries a lot, then I cry a lot. But I realize that that's really healthy. It's like a physiological, it's my body responding to this pain because I feel it so intensely. Everything she feels, I feel it too. And then if I release it, then we're over it later. I don't keep crying when it's done. Like it's done and it's done. And it's, I think it's helping. I don't know.
It's beautiful.
If I didn't, it would be much harder.
When it's like, maybe there's really nothing wrong. I think it's part of that perspective too, of maybe this is just how this because there is this intense sensitization, right? In that first, minute, like the first few months. But my sense is in that sense, like becoming more sensitive on so many levels. And it's this emotional sensitivity where it's like, you just feel everything that they feel. The more we can, I think, relax into, okay, like this is just the nature of it. So the intensity of being alive, like being out of the womb, is then transferred to the mother. Particularly, mother is the midline, but then anyone else who like freaking cares to tune in, right? But then there's the sense of I will know then in the future, on a whole other, much more subtle level, when there's like actual danger,
right? Or
when there's really not, and this is just one of these life learning experiences. Like my sense is like we don't even know what's going on in all that's happening if we're really tuned in on this, this more natural level of being, I don't want to use the word mindful, but it's like just really being incredibly receptive to the different levels of perception and being in communication, being curious, being in the unknown with it, but leaning in to like, hey, like how is this going to help me parent you as a teenager? Because something is happening now in these first few months that's, I know is going to have like this massive payoff in like 10 years or 20 years, or when you're deciding if you're going to marry that guy or not, or if you're going to start this project with this person or not. That like for some, like we're able to mix our nervous systems together so that we can actually have more access. And to me, it's like we're actually forming much more of we're more awake to forming a communal nervous system so that we can make better decisions together, so that we can experience even more joy than we can experience as separate individuals, etc.
I love that. Yeah. That teenage years feel really far away at the moment. But I do feel really that the communication is there. Like it definitely is. And every day I get more tuned into, okay, what is needed? What's happening? How is she feeling? And how does that affect everything? Because she runs my world now. I mean, yeah, I'm kidding myself if I think I have my own agenda anymore.
I love in the Vedic system, they say like for the first 5 years, you treat the baby like a king. All right. Because they are like this, because the happier they are, the happier everybody is. And then like from like 5 to, I don't know what it is, like 15, you treat them like a slave. And then from like 15 on, you treat them like a friend, or I'm not getting it exactly right, but it's something like that like there's like, yes. And it doesn't last forever, but it lasts while they're developing that nervous system. And while, if like, honestly, if the natural impulse for whatever makes them happy is totally pure, right? Before there's all this like social outside cultural influence where then they have to be acculturated, because you can't acculturate until you have somewhat of a cognitive capacity, which happens around age 7. So I think there's some science that backs up this. Like then they need to go into training. Like we're with a 9-year-old, we're in training. Like this is how we have family values, and one of them is like, you are a good roommate. Like we all strive to be good roommates, and she's under training of like, so she doesn't have to learn this in college, right? She's gonna learn it. Oh. Well, anything else you want to talk about, Rachel? This has been such a blast. I just want to give you the mic.
Yeah, that was such a blast. I'm super, super honored to be on the show.
Oh, awesome. And I know, actually, I want to ask you one more question then, because a lot of people that are teaching yoga, they offer these events and they don't sell out, and your retreats sell out. So any advice, just in closing, to people that are trying to, basically strategize and plan their career so that when they have an event, the right people show up with the right attitude at the right time, and it was worth crossing those days off your calendar to be away from your baby and away from your life of you, and to be with a group of people that are there to train.
Interesting. I'm talking about this a lot. I feel like it's such a challenge as a yoga teacher. It's not, coming out of teacher training thinking you're going to make a living teaching yoga. It's the most challenging thing. And I feel like the structure, even for yoga studios, how this works, how we pay our yoga teachers, it doesn't really work. Like it's really, 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 really hard. Right now I'm in a space, and I kind of always have been, where I try to ask for divine help. So if I know I have a challenge, if it's business wise, or if it's, something I'm looking to fulfill project wise, if it's selling out a retreat or making something happen, to sit with that in meditation and not forget that part of, there's a huge energetic part when it comes to, if it's selling out those spots, if you have a retreat, for instance, that's what you're looking for, more than, okay, I need to make this money, or I need to fill these slots, I need to be successful. It's that energetic piece of, I have to be aligned with, why am I creating this in the first place? What's my intention behind what we're creating for this retreat week? Do I want to inspire healing or give tools for empowerment, or what are we doing? And then live that vibration. So this doesn't become a mind thing of selling out a retreat. No, but what are we creating together here? That's the biggest piece, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like getting so clear on the why, that opening, asking for help. I often ask, like, who's meant to be here, right? Like who's supposed to come in, and because it puts us in the receptive mode, whereas the other, it's very an aggressive of like, I need to sell out X money. It's like an aggressive, more going after than a just, and we can do tactically things like there, but only after the big, first step of connecting to the why. Exactly. And then the why, that's so much more beyond us, right? If it's not even like, why am I showing up to teach or offer this? It's more of like, what's trying to happen here through me? And how can I be available to this inspiration to offer this gathering or whatever?
Right. More like holding space than anything else. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to have you back on the Dharma and Dollar Show to talk to the yoga teachers more about career stuff and just for people looking for, this next level of connecting to, having an impulse or an idea and going deeper into the why to make it happen and sourcing power and connection from there. That'd be fun.
Such an interesting process. Yeah, I'd love to be back.
Yay! Best to you and your fam.
Thank you. Same to you.
Awesome.
We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being a part of the Yoga Healer podcast listenership. Next Thursday, Ashley Dentino, one of my early Ayurveda and yoga students back in the day, she founded Vixie.com, and she's since then gone into interior design. And we talk about aligning and up-leveling your space element, like your physical space, your physical environment, with the potential person you want to be, with who you are becoming. It's an incredibly unique conversation that is happening this Thursday on Dharma and Dollars. I hope you tune in. And many people often ask me, like, thank you so much, Kate, for putting this stuff out. Is there anything I can do for you? And like the one thing podcast listeners can actually do is rate my show in iTunes. You just go to iTunes, you type in Yoga Healer, and you rate the show, you leave a review, you subscribe. Any of those 3 actions, that means the world to me. And I just want to say it's so exciting to me to see how the show has grown. In the last month, we had more downloads than ever. We're well over 1 million downloads now. And it's just exciting to me to see that this is what we want to hear and talk about and listen. You can always send us feedback. You can always send requests of who you'd like me to talk to at podcast@yogahealer.com. Thanks for sticking around. Namaste.
Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Kate Stillman. Yoga Healer.